Our next conversation is going to be with Teresa, who is Mama Arianna, and this is just looking at what has happened in your journey in our healthcare system. Karibu sana, Teresa.
Asante.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank God.
Happy Good
Friday.
Good
Oh, my
Friday.
butter, by the way.
Hey.
Happy Good Friday.
So it's like
It sounds like you're saying happy Friday.
Yeah. Happy Good Friday.
Happy Good Friday.
Okay, that's even how you respond. Jano, please give her the quote.
The quote for today in the spirit of Easter, I know this is said several times in the good book, in the Bible, but it says, "Be still and know that I am God." That is Psalm 46:10. Teresa, what does that verse mean for you, especially given the year that you've had?
Wow. Personally, I keep telling those that are close to me, I don't know how I would have maneuvered through the entire season if I didn't know God. Because I think that's an opportunity that God used to draw me closer. And at some point in life, I was serving God, but inafika mahali you feel like you don't want to carry the burden, you don't want the responsibility, you somehow try to run away from it, but the entire journey has actually drawn me closer to God. So yes, it's a painful story, but if you look at it in the end, if there's a role that Arianna played in my life, is reconnecting me to my Maker. And I can only say I'm privileged to be her mom.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
We'll go into your story just now, but I just want to ask you off the bat, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine by the grace of God. I may not tell you clearly how I manage, but yeah, God's grace has been sufficient each day at a time. Yeah.
You know, when you reconnect and then you re-anchor on faith, it gives you that strength,
Yes.
right? And we calculated that we have you today because today is also a very important day in the calendar of Christianity.
Yeah.
But your own journey is also testimony to what faith does. October 2023, and your daughter Arianna, and you noticed that she has a problem when she began losing appetite.
Yes.
Take us through that journey from 2023.
I would like to take you back a little because Arianna was a fighter, for sure, because she was a preterm baby born at 34 weeks because I developed pre-eclampsia, and it was so severe in that they had to take her out through an emergency CS. So all was well, apart from being underweight because she was born at 1.7 kgs. And a number of tests were run and all was well. But on day 2, she developed jaundice. And that was fixed, and in 2 weeks' time we were discharged. So my main goal as a mom was to take care of her, to make sure she was not exposed to infections, and also to gain weight. So I remember her feeding was kind of guided. We started feeding like 30 ml of milk at a go. Then that progressed all the way to a point she could take like 180 to 210. But on the third month, that is around October, is when the feeding like worsened. That had dropped to around 10 ml, 20 ml, and it was a real struggle. So we walked the journey with the doctors, and I remember one day walking into the clinic, and a blood test was carried out, only to discover the HB was 2.3. So when I say she's a fighter, I remember the doctor's word that 2.3, she should be on oxygen, and the baby was active. And you know the confusion with the baby's color when they are young. So she was actually pale on that we didn't realize. And I thank God that they carried out that test because we realized there was something that was not working. So she actually received her first transfusion on 16th of November, 2023. And all was well until January when we went now for, after that we were referred to a pediatric hematologist. So we used to frequently see the doctor. So one day we went for a normal checkup in Jan 2024, and again the HB had dropped to 5. And the rules were anything below 7, you guys have to be admitted. And I remember it was so simple. If we carry out the tests and it comes out below 7, just call home and say you're getting admitted. So there was that tension always anytime we went to the clinic, because you don't know how the results are going to come out. And after a series of tests were done, everything seemed okay. But the doctor suspected something could be wrong with the bone marrow, because it showed that all the blood cells were not at par. So actually the first bone marrow aspiration was done in January, and I remember the interpretation of the results was done on 31st January 2024. And it was a difficult day, because by then she had developed an infection, which would lead us to getting admitted for 2 weeks in Kenyatta National Hospital. And at the same time, it is the same day the news were broken that we needed to go to India urgently for a bone marrow transplant. Because by then they told us she had bone marrow hypoplasia, meaning the marrow was not producing enough cells. So we got in for that, for the 2 weeks, specifically to treat the infection, not concentrating on the root cause. Then after that, when we got discharged, I don't know from nowhere she got malaria. So it was back to back from K&H, and you know the trauma, trying different hospitals. So after K&H, we went to KU referral for about a week. To treat the malaria. And after that is when we sat down with the doctor, and she was like, I cannot walk this journey together. I cannot walk this journey alone. If you want me to help you, then we have to help each other. As in, I have to comply with whatever they were advising and all that. So we actually walked the journey together, and we didn't repeat the bone marrow aspiration. We just picked from where we were. And the main challenge was to raise the funds that were required, because I remember the first quotation. Of course, I got a number of quotations from different hospitals, but given the nature of the case, and that time she was very young, I think she was only 6 months, then the case was a bit delicate. So we settled on Fortis Memorial Research Institute in Gurugram. So we were to raise approximately 6M, and it was quite a huge figure for me, because I never imagined I would find myself in such a situation. Yeah. And those who know me, I didn't know how to seek help before. But I think something just happened. I knew I only had one job, to take care of this girl and fight for her. Because she showed strength from day one. She could not talk. She could not fight for herself. Therefore, as a mother, I had to stand in the gap. So, of course, we followed all the due process, and I remember at some point we approached NHIF, because I had contributed to NHIF from 2013. I started working at a very young age. So, and you know, in employment, either you have to submit, yes. And by the time we were traveling, I think we had raised about 3M when we traveled to India on 17th of May, 2024. This
is through family and friends and well-wishers?
Through family, yeah, friends and well-wishers. Because
by then you'd made it public?
No.
Oh, you
by then we had not gone public. But by then we had not gotten feedback from NHIF. They told us to wait for the letter. But the case could not wait. So we had to proceed with whatever we had. And I thank God, because God's favor was upon us. When you go to India, they tell you to deposit at least 90 to 95% of the amount quoted. But in our case, they started taking care of Arianna upon arrival, because they had to carry out some genetic test, which would take a whole month to get the results out. And we had to go through HLA matching, so that to determine the best donor. And because they knew that would take time, they actually began the process immediately with whatever we had, on one condition, that we would continue raising the rest of the balance, so that the process does not stop at any given time. So yeah, we spent the first 1 month there. So during that 1 month, we were purely relying on transfusion whenever the HB dropped. And I remember before we went to India, Arianna had gone through 7 blood transfusions and 3 for platelets. And it was quite tiresome, because getting a blood donor was quite easy, but getting a platelets donor was difficult, because you have to compare the blood group, and again, there's the threshold they give. So until now we got in for the transplant, and I'm lucky because I had a 90% match with Arianna, and I was the donor, and come mid-June 2024 is when she got admitted for a 21 days process that they begin with chemo, I think, to suppress the immunity in the body before they infuse the donor cells. And I saw her go through the struggles, but according to the medics, her side effects were quite mild. She did really well. And I remember when you were walking on the corridors of that hospital, Arianna was she was a source of strength to many people. She was so young, but I remember another guy saying, if this girl has gone through a bone marrow transplant, then I'll also go through the same. Because if she could pull through, then it's a sign that we can make it. Yeah. And when I went there, I also found other Kenyans with maybe similar cases of bone marrow transplant. The diagnosis, yes, was not the same, but it is the same process. So we used to encourage each other and all that. So I thank God that the doctors never stopped anywhere until maybe in October. In October is when we started having challenges. At some point, she developed GVHD, graft versus host disease. And I remember we were supposed to do an endoscopy, and I could not raise funds to book her in. And what the doctors did, we went through the emergency. She was booked through emergency, because now when it's an emergency case, now you don't go asking for deposits. And thanks to the nation media, because they shared the story and we were able to raise something, and she got discharged. So we stayed in India for a whole 6 months. Our first stay from 17th of May, we left on 15th of November. It was actually my birthday. And it was such a good moment for everybody who was following up on the story, because in the process, I gained friends who would pick my number maybe from the newspaper. We would talk on WhatsApp. They were there to encourage me. And I remember the family was there, the friends, and everybody was looking forward to meeting us, because it was such a tough journey, because Pearson syndrome is such a rare condition, and it can attack any organ in the body.
And how did you say it manifests? How does Pearson syndrome manifest?
They say it's something about mutation of, I don't know, the DNA. It's in the DNA actually, yeah. So, but when they carried out the test, they only found the bone marrow was only the bone marrow was affected. All the other organs were they were intact. So, and I remember the doctor posing that question. That Pearson syndrome has no cure. There is no definite cure to it, and the bone marrow transplant will only respond to the hematology issues. So they were like, and with the understanding of the cost implication and all that, are you comfortable? Because they gave us an option. We could either come back to the country and continue doing the blood transfusions, or proceed with the process knowing clearly it has no definite cure. But I remember I figured that I had gone to India for one reason, to do a bone marrow transplant. So I stood by that and I was like, let's do this and see the outcome, considering all the other organs were functioning as expected. So we went back again to India in December, I think on 13th, for a health expo. Because this time she was already in the records. It was the 7th half-match donor transplant for Pearson syndrome worldwide, and the first one in India. So actually my going back to India the second time was purely to share the testimony, because it was purely an act of God. Yeah, because the process was kind of a try and error. They were not sure. Maybe not many hospitals would have handled that, but by the grace of God, she made through to that level. And let me tell you, when we came back in December, we kind of forgot. This is
December last year?
Yes, 2024. At some point, we forgot about the struggle that we were going through, because she picked up so well. Actually, you would not tell that she was on medication because she was still on the post-transplant medication. You could not tell. She was active. She was meeting her milestone. She started gaining weight. She could sing. She could dance. She could talk, express herself. All was well. Until now in Feb, when we needed to do another endoscopy because she started losing her appetite again. And one signs of GVHD is loss of appetite. So we consulted, of course we went for bi-weekly checkups here in Kenya, and the two doctors worked closely. So the doctor in India requested for an endoscopy. He suggested that we do it in India, but for us, we didn't see the reason of traveling all the way to India for just an endoscopy that could be handled from here. And again, looking at the cost implication, and I didn't have money, I was not working and all that. So we did it at Gertrude's. Actually, we got in on a Thursday. It was done on Friday morning, and we got discharged the same day because nothing was noted, nothing major, although they took a biopsy. We were to get the results maybe a week later. But by then, everything was okay, and the baby was stable. So I don't know where we picked rotavirus from.
Rotavirus?
Yes, I don't know where it came from. But I remember we got home on Friday. Then on Saturday, I realized she was like retching now and then. Then on Sunday, the diarrhea came, the vomiting, and the instructions were clear. Anytime there is a high fever, anytime there is diarrhea or vomiting, we have to admit. Tests have to be run very quickly. So that is when we admitted her on Sunday evening, specifically to try and deal with the issue. But things escalated very quickly. Very quickly. Personally, if anybody mentioned to me that Arianna would not make it, I will not believe. Reason being, she was completely okay.
She was fine.
She was fine. She had already overcome the entire whole process. So what was rotavirus to take her down? So in the process, I think that led to dehydration. Then it affected the electrolytes. So I don't remember that it was on a Thursday. I was told we needed to transfer her to the HDU, and I was in denial. Like, why? How did we reach there? But on Friday, we had to get to the HDU for them to try and balance the electrolytes. And apparently, I never spent the night at the hospital on Friday evening. I left her in the care of the nurses. But the first thing I noted on Saturday morning, she had difficulties with her breathing. And an X-ray was done, and they said they saw signs of pneumonia. So they had again to fix that very quickly, but she got into septic shock. And I saw her being resuscitated on Sunday morning at around 7 a.m. I was still hopeful that she would make it through. But when the second resuscitation took place, I felt the urge to just release her. And then before he got there, God was like preparing me. You see the way you would listen to a song, and this time it ministers to you differently. And I remember this particular song. And whoever was singing said he was sharing a testimony. And the main message was, you may lose everything, but as long as you have Jesus, you have everything. And I think God was just preparing me. Only that I didn't get to know about it.
You're not getting it at that point.
Yeah, Arianna was so close to my sister, my younger sister. We look so much alike, and she was the caregiver all along. Any clinic that you went to, going to India, coming back, anytime I needed to step out to do something, they were always together. So she was actually closer to my sister more than myself. But the last 2-3 weeks, she would cling on me in a weird manner. I would barely do anything because she was always in my arms. And then she loved singing, and I remember there's a song she loved, Ile Kama Siwe Baba. But towards the end, she later started singing, So long bye-bye.
Wow.
And anytime, the way she would request for Kamasiwe Baba, she would say Baba. So this time it changed to bye-bye. So when we put solo Kamasiwe Baba, Nasema, no, bye-bye. And it was that specific song, like, goodbye to my pain and my sorrow. She sang that song for 2 weeks. She forced us to dance to it, and I was like, God, she was communicating all along. There were those signs that anybody who was close enough to her would note the change. Yeah, but all in all, I usually say that was a long journey, but within a very short period, because she lived for 1 year, 7 months, and I would say she lived her purpose, because she was a source of encouragement to many, and also to myself. She somehow reconnected me to God. My faith grew during the moment, because I came to realize so many things can change, but one thing is constant: God changes not. He can actually take away out of your comfort zone, take you to the wilderness, but still sustain you and take care of you. Because how Kenyans came through for us, how we managed to raise like 8M, because the quotation was reading 6 million, but by the end of our stay in India, we used more than 6 million.
Yeah.
It came close to 8 million. How God provided that, I cannot explain.
We are calling this a mother's pain, a nation's shame. And this is now, we'll go back into, initially NHIF had told you, let's wait for the letter, let's get the communication, let's come back into all that. Even the fact that you have to leave your country with such a small baby by yourself, go and live in another country for 6 months, and what you're going through there just tells us what we have or what we don't have in this country. We'll come back and continue this conversation shortly. Let's take a break. Teresa Erimo is Mama Arianna. Arianna is a baby who lived for 1 year, 7 months, but like the mom says, she served a purpose, and a big purpose at that. We'll be back shortly with this conversation. Keep it.
And letting Jeru and everybody else is saying that they're standing with you, that they are condoling with you, that they're sorry for your loss, but they're also saying this system failed you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about that, and I think as we go into it,
Initially, you said that at the point when you were considering going to India for the first time, and NHIF, which you had been a member and a regular contributor, had said, all right, so let's wait for the communication from the hospital.
Yes.
So
I think my first issue is with timelines, because when a case has been declared urgent, honestly, we could not have waited for that letter for us to travel to India. We had to use all means possible to make sure, as her parents, we have taken her to access the best medical care. And having gone through all that, the guarantee of payment letter was sent, I think, on 20th of July. By then, Arianna had already received the donor cells, and she was almost being discharged. And this time, but I tried to inquire from the hospital even before we got in for the process, and they were like, we understand the changes that are taking place at NHIF, and we have not received any official communication from them about the transition and whether they are going to settle the outstanding debts. And some of them were quite outstanding for long, and they were huge debts, so they were not
with
willing.
the same facility.
Yes, I'm talking about the same facility.
Fortis Memorial Research.
Yes. So I think the hospital sat and agreed they would not accept more GOPs because of what was outstanding, and they didn't know whether SHA would take responsibility because no official communication had been done. But they said, alternatively, they can either deposit the money to the hospital directly instead of them doing it on credit, or you can pay out of pocket, even if it means you borrowing a loan or whatever happens, and you go claim a refund or a reimbursement from NHIF.
Okay, who's telling you this? Not NHIF?
No, it's the hospital.
It's a hospital
staff.
management.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
In India?
Yes. So By the time the GOP came and the email was sent to the hospital directly and we were copied, they never responded to that. The hospital never responded to that email because they were like, we will not accept this, but they never said it officially. Reason being, they were also mindful about their relationship with NHIF.
Yeah.
So nani alibaki kuumia? Myself and my baby. So it went on, but I think the first time that the case was highlighted by Nation in October, somebody called me from SHA, I think Mr. Ibrahim, and he told me the case is so simple. They can organize in such a way that that SHA pays the hospital directly, and I'm left following or claiming a refund from the hospital. And remember, the 6 million that was quoted was for the period that she was there for the diagnosis and the main process, which was the transplant. But there was the post-transplant clinics. There was the medication that was quite expensive. So we would go to the hospital twice a week. And there was also our accommodation in India. And I think the treatment itself is quite affordable. But what is quite costly is the accommodation and the food and everything. You know.
Is this in the hospital or outside?
No, you stay outside the hospital.
So you have to look for
accommodation
outside of the hospital facility.
Yes. It's like an Airbnb, so that you can actually cook your own food. You understand the food in India is full of spices and chili. So with such a small baby, you have to prepare your own meals. So there was a lot of cost involved apart from the treatment itself. So when you were there, as we were raising funds, part of it was going to the hospital to take care of the bills, and part of it we were actually consuming where we were staying.
Sorry, was baby Arianna with you throughout, or was she in the hospital and you'd have to go there every day, or you'd go home together and then go to the hospital?
Personally, I was with Arianna 24/7.
Okay.
Whether at the hospital
Or
because of the age, I was always with her. But my sister was there. The first 1 month, the dad was there, but he had to come back to Kenya to take care of the funds, because you can imagine both of us being in India for like 6 months. That will not be possible. So I remained with my sister. So my sister is the one who would come to the hospital in the morning, go back in the evening, at least to help me with the baby and a few things, because maybe there are a bit of documentation to be done, some things needed to be gotten from outside, blah blah, and something like preparing something like porridge. Porridge is not a common meal maybe for a baby in India. They are used to oats, but she used to prepare and bring it to the hospital, and it had to be fresh throughout. So she was there commuting from where we were staying to the hospital, but I was constantly in the hospital until we were discharged. So
just to bring you back to the letter guarantee of payment from NHIF, how much were they committing to pay?
It's $5,000. So that was coming to approximately 400 and I don't remember, it was 450,000 by then.
This is last
Kenyan
year?
shillings, yes. By the time they issued the letter on 20th July 2024.
$5,000.
Yes.
And by that time, you've already done 60,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because what the hospital had told you to pay initially was over $50,000, isn't it? 5 million, 6 million, that's a $60,000.
Yeah.
And the insurance is saying they're going to pay 5,000, just about 10% of the bill. And that's all commitment that they can pay.
Yes.
Was it like partial, or was it, this is ile pesa yote tuko nayo mbele na nyuma? You know they say mbele na nyuma?
That's the package. So even before they communicated officially, I had talked to a few people and I knew we were to get a maximum of $5,000. Yeah.
So you have to basically get the rest of the money.
Yeah.
Now, you had said that then when you were called here by somebody from SHA,
Mr. Ibrahim.
Ibrahim from SHA, they told you that this one we can sort it out. We can pay the hospital and then you seek reimbursement from the hospital.
Yes.
What option did you go for? What was it? Was that the only option?
Okay, there was a challenge because they said the hospital would have responded to the email and officially communicate that they will not utilize the GOP. But they didn't do that. I'm actually the one who was kind of pushing for that communication. And I remember talking to the hospital. For the money to
come out of SHA, the hospital needs to respond.
Yes, they needed...
And acknowledge the GOP.
Yes. And maybe send an invoice later.
Right.
Yeah, but they didn't want to go through that process. So they decided to ignore. So but they communicated to me that we will not accept it because of 1, 2, 3.
Because we have pending bills with the previous institution called NHIF.
And they were quite clear, that is between you and NHIF. It's your institution. For us, our primary role is to take care of the patient.
Did you informally tell Ibrahim this?
I did.
So what did they say?
That's why he was trying to kind of fix the case by pushing for a payment directly to the hospital. Then that money would either be utilized for the post-transplant care and maybe whatever remained, they would refund to us to take care of the rent that we used to pay. Yeah.
And then I remember we even had a conversation with you on this show, when you called. I think they were supposed to still continue to make a follow-up. Tell us what happened after that conversation took place on this program.
A few days later, actually I think 2 days before the burial, I realized nobody was talking to me, so I called the acting CEO, and he connected me to a lady. I think she's in charge of communication. So that is the person I've been communicating with to date. So they requested that I do a formal email explaining the details of what transpired and my request, because they were to do a report and present it to the board for an approval. Because their policies, the way they are sitting now, they do not allow a reimbursement or a refund to an individual. They can only pay a hospital or an institution.
A contracted facility.
Yeah. So in this case, the request had to be approved by the board.
Okay.
But now, I sent my email on 7th of March, but to date, we're still waiting for the board to give an approval. So that is why I started by saying I have an issue with timelines. Because if that money was to come and help us maybe pay part of the bill, or maybe help settle some of the debts that we got ourselves into. Because yes, the baby is gone, I am no longer working, I have loans to pay, and all these loans I borrowed to take care of this girl. And this money, it's quite a significant figure. It may not be much, but it can help to take care of some of these debts. But now, from the look of things, nobody knows how long we're going to wait for that approval. With the ongoing changes, I don't know whether this will be another forgotten case, and I don't know who to follow up with.
With all the transitions happening in the ministry.
Yes.
But at SHA, the board is intact. It has not been changed.
Yeah.
The only thing that has changed is the acting CEO, Batingasira, has been replaced with a new CEO, Dr. Mwangi.
Yes.
The communication manager that you're talking to is still a communication manager, is she not?
Yes, she
So
is.
she's still there. So everybody who knows about this case is still working for SHA. What you're waiting for and what you were told by the comms manager is this matter is now being presented to the board for the board's approval.
Yes.
No indication when the board is sitting?
No, I may not know.
Nothing at all.
No.
So there's no now further communication that we expect that the board is going to sit in the next 2 weeks, in the next 3 weeks, in the next month, in the next quarter. You have absolutely no idea when this will take place.
I have no idea. And you know,
or whether it will take place.
Or whether it will take place. I mean, you try to follow up, it's
And
quiet.
actually my worry is, you know, this case has been discussed on so many platforms, so many times. Why is it so difficult to grant that approval? Because it's to me, it's a straightforward case. Because at least they shed some light saying the approval can only come from the board. But looking at the genesis of the case, we have provided all the documentation required. Why is it so difficult to grant that approval? And for how long will it be pending?
And for them to not just explain if there's a hold-up. It's interesting, just as we come back to you, Mama Arianna, Grace Mule, who it was covered in the news, she's actually sent a comment on YouTube and she's saying my name is Grace Njoki. That's why I went to the press conference, the Ministry of Health. SHA isn't working. We remember when she was highlighted, really speaking on behalf of many who are feeling that frustration. Yes. And so you're saying right now there just hasn't been any communication, so you don't have a way forward. No.
And it's tiresome to keep on making those calls. Sometimes they are picked. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes no response. And I can only imagine, I'm lucky that I got such a platform. We are discussing such a matter. How many Kenyans out there do not have a clue of where to begin or where to start?
Eric, we've discussed many of these SHA issues on the show before.
Yeah.
What do you think is this main bottleneck? Is it that they are talking about using the backlog of resources as an excuse? Is it miscommunication, poor communication? What is it?
I think the bottom line here is just poor communication, right? Even when you had Robert Ngasira, who was the then acting CEO, when you called and spoke to him on air here, he said, this is something we can pick up and follow up. They should not have waited for you to call them, because we gave them your contact and they had your contacts. They should have called you immediately, right? That's just area number one. So you called them after 2 weeks, or was it 3 weeks?
I think not 2 weeks, a few days later.
A couple of days after the show, you then called, because we also gave you the contacts. So you call CEO and CEO says, all right, so let me just hand over this to my officer so that my officer can do the things that I've instructed her to do.
Yeah.
Since then, you are just not getting a clear way forward. I think it's a communication issue. Because even the chair of SHA, who was online on that day, Dr. Abdi Mohammed, he listened and he said, yes, we can sort it out. This is a matter that can come and we can see how we can sort it out. It should be that. These are those cases where the Social Health Authority shows that we are more proactive than the other guys. Right? One of the things that the reason why we are changing is so we can be nimble in our decision making. We can be proactive in our decision making. Come in here and say, this is a clear case, it's documented, this is what happened. Unfortunately, the facility has not done what would trigger a payment from us, which is acknowledging our guarantee for payment and also sending us an invoice. But despite that, we know this case. We have all the documentation. We can take care of it this way. But,
communicate, even tell her we're coming back to you, but if you keep calling and you're not getting, it's even hard to move forward, right? I'm sure it just leaves you feeling a bit stuck.
And even for the staff that I've been talking to, it's also difficult for her, because I can only imagine what
she doesn't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, whenever she sees my call, because she has to talk to me, but she doesn't know when. So they're still waiting.
Minister Njue Victor Moses Kuri had also agreed to help out from the last discussion through the phone call. Did he keep his word? What commitment did he make? And have you heard from him? He made a commitment.
Moses Kuria said here that he's speaking on behalf of the government. We're going to stand with Mama Arianna and so on and so forth. That yes, the government of the Republic of Kenya will not let you down.
I've never heard from him since then.
Okay. Yeah. Moses, you made a promise and everybody had it. You'd like us to look for the clip? We'll play the clip. And we asked, are you making a commitment? He said, yes, the government of Kenya. Moses Kuria, you made a commitment. You have not followed through. That's one. Grace Muley, we'll put our number. We'd like to talk to you because you see, Grace is one of those ladies who went to the MOH when the then health CS. How many health CS? The then health CS, Dr. Baraza, was holding a press conference. She was arrested because of all these issues and all, and she was released after public outcry. But she says, these are the reasons why I was going to the minister, to the minister's office, to raise them, because you are talking about a system, but this system is so rigid that
and not forthcoming.
And not forthcoming with information. And that's where rigidity comes in, because I just don't know. It's like talking to someone and they just look at you and like, okay,
then,
yes, okay, no, then. Okay, when. That's what you got from SHA. Okay. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'd like to hear from you as well. Send a message to Teresa Wairimu, who is Mama Arianna. Arianna unfortunately passed away in February this year after all that work, and it was a quick one. But she's here, Teresa. She has got to leave. Next hour, let's talk about your journey as a caregiver. And also your sister. How old was your sister? How old is your sister now?
She should be, I think, 22. Yeah.
So this is somebody who is in her early 20s, has had to travel to India to take care of a niece. We'll talk about that shortly. Keep it here. We are fixing the nation, one conversation at a time.
We are still in conversation with Teresa Wairimu, Mama Arianna. The public got to know her when her story came to light, when seeking funds to ensure that baby Arianna is able to get the treatment that she deserves, while also covering essential costs like accommodation and just being able to manage life in India during her treatment. Arianna is not here anymore. She passed away in February. Her mother is here to honor her legacy, to talk about the issues in the system, which we've covered towards the end of the last hour. A lot of you on YouTube and on social media talking about the fact that, yes, we need answers. We need answers as to why this remains an issue, not just for Mama Arianna, but for so many other Kenyans, why the system continues to fail in either communicating or just being able to say where they are in terms of trying to help out Kenyans seeking access to medical services. And in this hour, we said we want to now speak and turn our attention to Teresa herself as the mother, as a caregiver, her sister who was also a caregiver, and talk about that effect, life as a caregiver, because your life is essentially on hold in many ways. Yeah. Your sister's life, you told us that she's in her early 20s.
Yes.
Okay. So talk to us about that, Teresa. Just people sometimes forget that there's a caregiver in all this. They know there's Mama Arianna, but they need to remember Mama Arianna's life is on hold. And what that means for you, how have you been able to navigate life on hold, looking after your baby, and how are you doing now? How are you trying to come out on the other side?
Actually, I would say the whole of 2024, actually from late 2023 to date, I don't know whether I've really been concentrating on myself or even thinking about myself, because it has been constantly about the patient. When the patient is going through the transition, maybe from one issue to another, you're there, you're the one receiving the news from the doctors. You can observe some things happen. There's the fear, you don't know of what will happen next. There's so much into it. But now when it comes to my life as an individual, I think everything came to a standstill. Right from when she started having issues, we were in and out of hospitals in Kenya even before we could go to India. And when you were told we had to raise such kind of money, I could no longer go to work. Actually, my employer was really patient with me, because I remember for some months they paid me without even working. They would donate where possible, and they were really patient with me generally. Not so many people would do that. And I know even the policies, the HR policies in many companies do not allow that, but they went out of their way to do their best. But now coming to our side as caregivers, my sister had just graduated. Up to now, she's not working because she was constantly there. Right from when Arianna was born, because you can see the issues came about 3 months after, when she was 3 months old. So from then, she has not been able to work or do, maybe this is the time you're trying to figure out things actually.
Yeah.
To kind of begin afresh, because I can only speak for myself. Everything came to a standstill. It's kind of a 360-degree turnaround. My career, my life as a person, emotionally, financially, there's a lot happening. And a few people would many people would call asking about the patient. How is the patient doing? But only a few people who have probably gone through a similar journey would ask about how you're doing as a caregiver. Many people do not know, because you actually go through the same process as the patient, only that you're not the one in pain. The patient is the one in pain and consuming all the medication and all that, but you're constantly there. sometimes you even find yourself overthinking.
Yeah, you're
like,
more worried than the patient.
Yeah, more than the patient.
Because the patient knows what they're going through. Even if it's an adult patient, the patient knows what they're going through. You have no idea. You're trying to figure out, is this what they're going through? Are they blinking too much? Are they not blinking? Are they turning color? It is torture.
Especially when it's a baby who cannot express
Make it a baby.
himself or herself.
Yeah. Given everything that you went through, I'm curious to know what kind of care can be there for caregivers when you have a patient. You know what I mean? Like, is it a caregivers fund? Is it a caregiver support group? As somebody who was a caregiver, primary caregiver, how can that be supported? Because as you rightfully say, the fundraising was for baby Arianna, you know, in terms of the medical care, but it was especially also for the caregivers to be there for the patient.
Yeah.
What kind of solutions do we need to be thinking about to remember and to care for the caregivers?
One is therapy. Any caregiver, it's important that they all go through therapy, because what you go through as a caregiver is not easy, and sometimes you don't even have a formula on how to process it, and especially when the results are quite devastating when the patient passes on. So then the other bit, when it comes to maybe financial aid, something like a relief, or I don't know, like financial support, so that you're able to take care of the basic needs, the day-to-day needs. Because like in my case, I had to worry about the patient, and at the same time also much worried about the raising funds.
Yeah.
So what if maybe I didn't have to worry about the funds, I only concentrated on the patient? Because irrespective of the difficulties that you're going through as an individual, you have to wear a strong face for the patient. You have to keep encouraging them and to pray to God that they come out strong. But I think if maybe such a thing was maybe organized for caregivers to get some kind of financial support, that would come a long way. And also therapy. I think therapy is very important.
Talking about therapy, did you get any therapy yourself? Let's talk about at the moment when your baby is unwell and you go to hospital and told we have to conduct some tests, and then they come and throw this whole heavy word, bone marrow, and they tell you this. What went through your mind and your entire system, and did you get any kind of psychosocial support at that point?
I would say the doctors in India, there's a specific doctor, I think, who was in charge of counseling. So anytime the results came out, we would sit down, he would explain into details. But it goes up to that point. Nobody come to ask you, like, how are you processing the information? What do you think about it? And especially the Kenyans who are there, who are in India. You barely know each other. But let me tell you, when you land there, it's not about the country. As long as you can see your fellow African, you become a family. So you kind of console each other. But from the hospital, there's no such kind of arrangement. They'll only share the details of what the results means or what it means to the patient and all that.
Yeah, I'm very curious, and I hope we can get this answer at some point of what measures hospitals put in place for psychosocial support. At some point, we need to follow through, because I think it should be a given that when there's a certain diagnosis made, the psychosocial support is almost introduced almost immediately as a way to cope. As the treatment is being handled, psychosocial support should be on hand. So curious to know if there's any hospitals that do it, or whether maybe these services we don't know about, but it would be good to know. You know, Teresa, I've been looking at you and thinking to myself, your story was so public, and I'm wondering what is one of the biggest challenges of grieving while in the public eye?
Let me tell you, leave alone the grieving part. Anytime Arianna's story was on paper, even when I was in India, it was such a hard moment for me, because everybody wants to talk to you, to understand what is happening. There was that pressure for like 2 days. And anytime I knew there's a story going up, I even had to prepare psychologically because it was a lot to deal with because I was used to leading a quiet life. Yeah, so actually it's because of Arianna that people now know me and they see me the way I am. I was leading such a quiet life. I'm the kind of a person, I will dedicate my energy to whatever results that you need to achieve, but I'm comfortable without people knowing that I'm the one who did it. You celebrate the outcome, but I don't want even people to know I'm the one who contributed to it. But now I had to deal with all this attention. So it was a lot. And even now, it is a lot. And I remember after we buried Arianna and I came back home, I would meet strangers on the street and they would say hi. Na wananiambia pole. And I don't know them.
You don't know them?
Yeah, I don't know them.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. And I for like 7 days, I never wanted to go out. I never wanted to meet people. So therapy is important. For me, after the burial, I only went for one session after I came back from India. And things happened so fast that I was not even able to do a follow-up. And I think after Arianna passed away, I'm still not ready to go for therapy, but I know I will. With time, I will. And I think also my sister will make arrangements so that, it's part of the healing process.
It's important.
And life has to go on.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, I keep asking myself, yes, I'm in this situation. Yes, I've been let down, but also I can't forget that there are people who came through for us. There is the positive side of it. And again, what would Arianna want Teresa is the mom to do?
Yeah.
What do you think she'd want you to do?
Definitely she wants me to be okay and to be strong, because right now she's in a better place. She's probably maybe singing and dancing, only that not in this world, but in a better place that has no pain and the agony and the letdown. You can, so I can only be at my best. So I know there are those moments we can push like for a whole week without breaking down, but there are those moments we just wake up feeling
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to raising the issue of the caregiver support system and what kind of structure is needed for this, and not just us brainstorming and talking about it, and even asking all our fixers, how do we fix it? How do we come up with a system that supports the caregivers? Before we get there, you're mentioning your sister. Let's honor her by mentioning her by name, right? And what's her name?
She's Mary Nyambura Ndongo.
Mary Nyambura is a 22-year-old.
I think 23.
23. It's a 23-year-old girl who has just graduated college, but her niece is unwell, and her big sister is having to take the niece to hospital in India. She drops everything, goes to India, comes back. She's taking care of this. So as we're talking about Teresa, the caretaker, we're also talking about Mary, the caretaker, right?
Yeah.
And both of you are processing it in different ways. You are the parent, you're older. She is younger. And she also has to process this. Now, she has graduated. Up to now, she just is unable to start figuring how she has to figure out how to start looking for employment, how to get into adulting. It's like her way into adulting. And there are very many such children across the country who are caregivers whose life just gets frazzled at this point. What was Teresa doing at the point when baby Arianna was born? What was your career? What were you doing? What's your career? What's your profession?
I'm an accountant by profession, but I was a customer care manager in one of the financial institutions in Kenya. So I was in that position for like 5-6 years. Initially, I was doing credit.
So basically, as you talk about now picking up the pieces and all, you'd like to get back into doing what you know how to do best.
Yes.
And this is what you were doing before, right? And people who are listening and they know, okay, if you've got any opportunities and such, this is how we sort out this issue. This is how we fix it. Teresa needs to get herself back into doing these things so that she can also get busy. And importantly, this is your life. And like you said, Arianna would like you to get back. Mom, just get back to life and doing this, right?
Yeah.
And also for Mary, what did she study?
Business administration.
She also would need employment opportunity. We are working and we're trying to figure out the best way, and our boss, Simaloy Tajom, is very big on this. How do we create a structure and a system that looks at such, and very many fixers would like to fix. How can we work together to fix it? But for now, let's just say that, Teresa, you know what they write on LinkedIn? Open to employment.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And also, you are open to talking to getting psychosocial support, right? Those psychologists who would be able to offer the services, you and your husband and your sister and the entire family that was walking this journey with you, they need that.
Yes, yes.
Now, for the next 5 minutes, how do we fix this caregiver support system, Janet? What do you think we need to do?
I really love how Teresa put it, which is just having some kind of structure. I don't know whether it's a fund, but I think she mentioned some ideas. But I think the first thing we need to do is recognize the need to care for caregivers. I think that's the first step, is to remember that where there was baby Arianna, there was also Mama Arianna, and that her needs are really important. So I think the first fix is to recognize the need for the caregiver. Because you're right, most people will want to know how is the patient, but how is the mom? How is the sister? And then once we're able to normalize and recognize the caregivers and recognize that they need support, is to find out when we're fundraising, can we also be intentional about putting something aside for the caregiver? Having referral pathways to psychosocial support. I think those are some of the low-hanging fruits. Is to say right now, hey, Teresa, there's actually somebody who is open to giving you some psychosocial support. Call me on ABCD. That's what I'd like to see. And knowing Kenyans, we've got big hearts. I think people will want to follow up and find out. But Eric, I think that's how we do it, is by we recognize it, we use low-hanging fruits, referral pathways, and then now you try to make sure that it becomes part of the system. You push for a systems change to say, whenever there's a patient, can we please think about the community and can we think about the psychosocial support? I have a question to ask you. Given everything that you've been through, Eric just asked you about work, about what you do. Has it shifted what you want to do in life? Has it shifted where you see your purpose now?
No, because all along I've been dealing with people.
Okay.
And where I used to come in is when things are not working and I would fix them.
Okay.
So that is what I would want to continue doing.
You have what I call quiet power, Teresa. You really do. It's you. For me, you just scream power from across me, even though it's quiet power. And I just admire your tenacity and courage. And I see you touching a lot of people, no pressure. So I'm sure also there's people saying, you know, now your story, you can help so many people, but I think you also need to pour into you first.
Okay, I don't mind being an encouragement to a number of people. Whenever I get an opportunity, I talk to them.
Okay.
But I know one of the questions that people would ask is, why encourage me to go for the same process, whereas your own patient did not make it? But one point is clear, Arianna made it through. Even by the time we were coming back to Kenya, it was a celebration. We actually went back to India the second time, which was more like a celebration because we had conquered. So whatever she got, the septic shock and the rotavirus, was something too small compared to what she had gone through initially. So there is hope. And I don't fear when I say that. You have to fight to the last minute. And even if things don't go the way we expect them to, just know that you have to fight to the last minute. So I don't mind if I find those platforms where I have to share with people the entire journey. I will definitely do that.
It's admirable.
It's a good thing. I think we need, whether it's a bill or something, one of our legislators needs to pick this up and look at how we introduce a proper caregiver support system in our systems. We have a State Department for Social Services that takes care of, the elderly.
Right.
I don't know whether it could fall into that. or just introducing it under the health and social health authority laws and seeing where do you bring in the caregiver. So yes, part of the package for SHA is this, and the other, but particularly for chronic illnesses, there should be a caregiver support that goes and pays. Go and pay psychosocial support for the caregiver that pays the psychologist. Go and pay support in one way of, for example, you're going out of the country. So this is paying the hospital bill, okay, but who's paying the accommodation and the support of the caregiver during this time when, you know, such needs to be introduced into law. And also in our insurance sector. So even the private insurance companies, sawa, yeah, you are paying for all these things, but you're paying the medical bill. How about the bill to support the caregiver? Because the caregiver, like you've said, is a patient, not main patient, but is a secondary patient. And the caregiver needs to be clear here. So this is the patient, who's the caregiver, what support do they need, what amount from the insurance is actually going to support this. We have to fix it systemically that way. But Teresa, thank you very much for joining us today. And we will keep reaching out to you, talking to you. I know the Social Health Authority will have to take action on this, and we'll follow up together and seeing how do they bring this board. The chair of the board, he has been on this show. He will get this clip today. The new SHA CEO, Dr. Mwangi, is going to get this one. The communication manager will obviously get this. What we want is just malizani his story. Teresa Mama Arianna has been our guest from 8:30.